Accident Choice by Literally Mad Lad on AO3. Episode 11. Chapter 4. Curiosity kills a lot of things, like the mood. This would have never happened if you just listened to me. Katsuki could hear the assistant's voice from outside. The door to the cave was barred shut, but it was impossible to block out the sunlight. We're screwed! You do realize that, don't you? If anything comes about this, and they tie it back to your the property isn't even under my name. Deku reassured. It won't be an immediately red flag. Oh, right, because there are just so many saltwater caves in the area. You're being unrealistic. Who's to say the kid's even gonna come back here? We can set up an electric fence like I suggested. These are people we're dealing with, not farm animals. What do you suggest we do then? We? There was a lapse of tense silence before Deku slammered to argue, correct himself, panic. His voice withdrew further away as he chased after the assistant. Katsuki was wary of the pool now, and Deku made sure to warn him to stay away from the pool after he would leave. The last thing they needed was Katsuki being seen or pictures being taken of him. Katsuki was livid at the prospect of an intruder coming back. I know. Deku signed back that evening. But it'll be a little while before I can get the electric fence up and running. Katsuki expressed his confusion over the electric fence. It's a wall of sharp wire that shocks a person when they touch it, Deku said. And I can't hire an electrician to come here, so I have to do some research and order some equipment. Deku would sit on the dock with his laptop and portable hotspot while he researched how to tap into the power grid. Katsuki grew more irritated as the days went by. Deku wasn't sleeping, and the bags under his eyes pissed Katsuki off to no end. He looked worse than before because of them. Katsuki wasn't sure that Deku was eating either. And then, the weekend came again. Deku had anticipated that the kid would appear the next week. He said the guy looked like he was in high school, and since Katsuki's cave was so far removed, the guy likely didn't have time to travel out this far during the day. Not to mention, the kid likely recognized that the metal door would be locked. If Deku didn't visit, the kid would be trapped in a cave. Though, Deku had advised him to not linger around the pool. Katsuki couldn't help it. He wanted to watch the exact moment the voices loitering in the forest drew near. He wanted to hear the echo the moment two girls had their first glimpse of the pool, and how their invaders turned the cave into a catastrophe of noise. Katsuki retreated the moment a rope was dropped into the cave. He was tied to a nearby tree, but the knot wasn't secure enough. There were 4 of them, and on 4th, the rope gave out. As the newcomers panicked over having left their phones up to be passed down, one Maria assured them that the door was out, and that the owner would let them out once he got back. Katsuki retreated. This was normally the time of day he'd be sleeping, and his skin crawled at the foreign echo that reached his den. Deku didn't want him to infiltrate, and Katsuki recognized the consequences of what would happen if he was given free rein right now. Oh, how badly he wanted to wreak havoc. But he wouldn't do that, because that might jeopardize Deku's stability. When the commotion subsided several hours later, Katsuki left his den to investigate. The biggest alert to their departure was the sound of the metal door clinking open. There were no occupants in the pool, but Katsuki still lingered near the weeds, just to be certain. Through them, he watched Deku fill a plastic bag with nearly empty cans and glass bottles. He used the simmer to grab one such bottle from the water. Katsuki urged a hoarse, malicious thing died when he considered who dropped the trash in his water. Deku paused mid-stroke across the surface. His eyes lingered on the weeds before glancing away, unsteadily. Sorry about this, Kachan, he said, and he couldn't look Katsuki in the eyes as he said it. A sickening rage bubbled up from the bottom of his Katsuki's stomach. He wanted nothing more than to bite the intruder's head off, to see the blood mix with the salt water. Then, his rage remained at a consistent simmer. He didn't have an outlet for it. He just lost his appetite somewhere between tasting beer in his pool water and seeing the look of absolute disappointment on Deku's face. When the pool was cleaned up, Katsuki glided over to the dock and hooked a finger of the hem of Katsuki's sneakers. Deku paused to look down. where he could assess the question on Katsuki's face. Katsuki couldn't sign it with one hand, but didn't seem the need to. Just for a little while. I have work to do, Deku said, and he proceeded to unlace his shoes. After stripping down to a pair of swim trunks, Deku took a running leap and dove into the pool. He tucked under, spinning back up to the surface, where he brushed the water from his face. His hair slickened back. He shuddered at the cold, his voice stammering as out a gasp. When Katsuki drew closer, he could feel Deku's goosebumps against his scarred hands. Deku swam near the edge of the pool, shivering. His lips had gone blue, but he stayed in the water. Katsuki glided up along his chest to warn Deku, but it did little to help. Katsuki didn't have much body heat to transfer. This winter is going to be worse than last. I can already tell, Deku commented. He folded his arms around Katsuki, and even when he was shivering, he was warmer than Katsuki. Katsuki took his face against the crook of Deku's neck and shoulder, where his cheeks could absorb the pulsing heat under Deku's skin. Deku sat back at the flat of a surface rock, submerged up to his chest. Katsuki's weight pushed him back, where Deku reclined against the edge of the pool with a tired sigh. As the minutes went by, the tension in Deku's shoulders slackened. His arm loosened around Katsuki's waist, where his scales merged with his ungrossly human flesh. Katsuki memorized the difference between their skin, and how they contrasted one another. Deku's was dry, soft, while Katsuki's flesh-like solid was like a shell and glossy with a thin layer of what the assistant often called slime. Deku's eyes were closed. His head was tipped against Katsuki's, and Katsuki supported it. Deku's freckled cheek was hot against his hair, and it warmed him down to his callous fins as Deku's skin pruned in the water. Katsuki listened to his breathing even out. He had watched Deku nap on the dock before, but never so close up where Katsuki could feel the rise and fall of his chest. Katsuki looked down. His tail was draped over Deku's legs, and the legs of his swim trunks were billowed up to the water. Katsuki stared at the elastic hem, the one he had attempted to pull back before. Deku hadn't let him get a hold of his swim trunks again since. Katsuki ran his finger lightly over the etched elastic hem where two drawstrings hung. He pinched the fabric, gently, and remained cautious of Deku's expression. His eyes were still closed. Katsuki raised the hem up. It strained against Deku's hip bones, and with Katsuki's head against Deku's shoulder, he could peer down to the flat surface of Deku's adamant and down the trail of small black hair that consisted under the hem. Katsuki didn't have any hair anywhere other than the top of his head, so it was odd to see it under the waistband of Deku's shorts. Deku had light, fine hair all across his skin, though, but those couldn't compare to this. There was an indentation that traveled in a line along the very top of Deku's legs, where his skin seemed to sink in around defined muscle. They traveled in a V shape towards the path of the curly black hair at the base of the soft, round molded flesh. Katsuki held the hem up with one of his fingers and dragged his thumb lightly across the surface of the hair. It was wiry, and Katsuki studied it more. He noticed distinct blue lines of veins along the flat skin on either side of the trail. "What are you doing?" Deku's groggy voice broke him out of his trance. Katsuki bolted. He took off before Deku could convince him that it was okay, or that Katsuki hadn't just crossed a line that Deku had drawn ages ago. We are not going to talk about what just happened there. We're not. We're just not. But what we are going to talk about is, Monoma, what the fuck? I'm sorry, you go into somebody's pool and dirty it the fuck up? That is disrespectful and rude. That is pissing me off. Actually, Katsuki, I wouldn't mind you killing a couple teenagers. Go ahead. I endorse it. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.